Welcome back. I'm Kimberly. Today I'm speaking with Audra Phelps, a coach who supports women navigating life after leaving the LDS Mormon Church. We'll be navigating her story about detangling identity, faith, family, and motherhood, and about practical, compassionate steps for anyone questioning where they belong, whether they stay, shift, or leave.
Well, hi, everyone. I am currently living overseas. I've been overseas for about 13 years, getting ready to head back to the United States, pursuing a career full-time as a coach for women who have left the Mormon Church / LDS Church. It's a very lonely and confusing time for a lot of women when they leave. Left over 10 years ago. I did it alone without any kind of a framework or a mentor. I've learned a lot about myself, about identity, about emotional regulation. I want to reach back and help those women, especially those who are still raising kids, because when you're in the middle of raising kids, it's an especially complicated time when you're also going through an identity crisis. And I am now coaching women who have left the church.
What I hear is that you're trying to help women have a sense of community for making their own choice. If they're, this doesn't align with what I want to do and how I want to raise my kids anymore. Or maybe I want to take some values, but trying to detangle it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I always start with the caveat that my intention is never to convince someone to leave the church or convince them to follow my path, what I did. It's more about sharing my story for those who have already left, or they've left in their heart at least, and they are really struggling with coming to know who they are. I want them to know that they absolutely can unravel everything that they had learned that didn't sit right with them. Also find out what still resonate with them, because there is a lot of good in the church. And so it's not all about cutting everything off and walking away. How can you know that you're ready to leave, the right step for you, integrate the good parts of you and the learnings that you got from when you were in the church, and take that moving forward with clarity and confidence, especially into motherhood. Parenting is really a subset of who you are. In order to be really secure in who you are as a mom, you need to know who you are as an individual first. And it's just really a message of it's possible to get to the point where you're thinking about the church without anger and resentment. You've taken the good, you've moved forward, you've created something that really aligns with you.
You could even help people who want to stay in the community. That's what I heard you say, to be authentic about who you are. Because I think in a lot of ways, we enmesh ourselves. We can enmesh ourselves with our husbands, our children,
Mhm.
and our religion. And what I'm learning out is those are different layers of codependency. And it caused a lot of
Yes.
resentment in ourselves, in religion, script by script. It's hard to trust it if it's something we feel forced to do, or even our marriage or even our children, versus it's something we want to do. Because both can be true, as we want to do it. When we're feeling like we have to do it, there's that tension. It's because we are more than just the rules in people's lives.
Yeah, if you're feeling like it's an obligation, then that is a sign that something's not aligning with you, that there's something there that's out of sync with you. That's a good time to really take a deep dive into what is it I'm feeling around this thing. If something feels like an obligation, it probably feels constrictive in your body, right? Oh, I don't want to do that. Well, that's your subconscious speaking to you through your body before your conscious mind has a chance to talk you out of it. It's your subconscious mind saying, there's something here that's not aligning with me. There's some belief here that isn't sitting right. A lot of times in high demand religions, you push it down. This is what I'm told I have to do. This is what the church is telling me will give me eternal salvation, or whatever the conditioning that there was. That's a sign that there's something to investigate there. There's something that's not sitting right.
Yeah, it's hard because there can be so many good leaders, but they're being led by bad leaders too. For me, when it comes to the Bible, I'm full on anything Jesus says, I'm in. He knows what he's talking about. I've kind of lived my life more so what Jesus taught versus the 10 commandments. Obviously, Jesus wasn't going around murdering people. I'm not going to do that. Naturally, I follow the 10 commandments. I have seen so many people cherry pick the Bible, and
Yeah.
I hope this resonates. I learned that the Bible was written at a 12th grade level, and a lot of books
Mm.
we read today is 4th to 6th grade level. We're not even like pushing critical thinking. We're trusting one person. Every religion in some form or fashion, it just takes one bad leader to ruin it for everybody. And most of the time, people who are trying to be good leaders were trained by a bad leader. And it's so hard. It's so
Yeah.
easy. I see it all the time. This church was so amazing. And then it changed all of a sudden. Specifically, my understanding of Mormonism is it's not even like one pastor, it cycles through, correct?
Yeah, I think every 5 years you get a new bishop. Yeah.
Which can be a good or bad thing. It can be
It can be a
great.
good or bad thing, for sure. I think an interesting point is, for me, it was my relationship with God, my spirituality is very personal. Through my years of questioning, I was able to kind of separate God and the church. I started to see more and more the church as a middleman. I had this relationship with God. The church was there interpreting my relationship with God for me. It was this external authority delivering the messages. After a while, I don't like this interpretation. This external authority over my life is telling me what to do, what to eat, what to drink, how to raise my kids, what to do on Sundays and Mondays and Wednesdays, and really dictating every area of my life, that I had completely lost who I was. You don't see it when you grow up in it because it's normal to you, right? It's what everyone's doing. It's what your family's doing. And the way that the LDS church is structured, the wards, which is the congregation, that's what they call it, is a ward. You are in the same ward as everyone in your neighborhood. So it's geographical. And so you're also physically surrounded by everyone that you're going to church with. You don't always know that you're just following what you're being told. I like what you said about Jesus in the Bible. If you read the stories of Jesus in the Bible in their purity, I mean, they're amazing messages about love and service and kindness, and they're very simple. And then, in my opinion, religion and the leaders in the church come in and they complicate it. They complicate it, and it's usually with an intention of control over the congregation.
I can totally see that too. Honestly, when I heard that during the fall of Rome, that's when the Bible started. They created the book. Did Rome actually die? Did it actually fall? And we used the Bible instead, and we kind of cherry picked. We're not ready to get rid of these ideas that are not good.
Right,
And
right.
so,
Yeah.
because you hear people even use the Bible to justify slavery and indoctrination in of itself too. I sometimes question because like I love learning a different perspective from other people from their religion. For me, even if Jesus was just a man, just a regular old Joe man, he wasn't the son of God, it doesn't take away what he did. It
Right.
doesn't take away from me at all. I always hear people try to do gotcha moments, and I see how AA uses it. Can AA still be corrupted? Of course. Anything when you go in a group can be corrupted. That's why it's important to understand the message. It's important, we're talking about having alignment with yourself and
Yeah.
understanding right from wrong truly. And AA, that's actually how I healed from my own trauma. I read an AA book and I was like, I think I'm addicted to drama from all the chaos of growing up. I need to work on this. Why am I starting stuff in my life I don't understand? I think, though, no matter what, if we take what Jesus taught from what I've read, he never was saying it's okay to hurt people. He flipped tables, sure. He was upset. That's a normal human response when you're
Right.
surrounded by corruption and you're trying to lead and they're not getting it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, religions can interpret the Bible in lots of different ways. And this is why I think it's really important to learn how to tune into yourself. Because most organized religion, especially high demand religions like the LDS Church, it's all about believing the interpretation that they give you. I remember so many times as a kid, something didn't sit right with me. I don't like this. And I was told, oh, you need to doubt your doubts. If you're having a doubt, it's because you don't have enough faith. You need to read your scriptures more and you need to pray more often. The Lord works in mysterious ways. All of these things that I used to hear was a way to get me to bury my own opinions and bury my own beliefs and push it down. I was also told, need to make your will the Lord's will, which was really the church's interpretation of the Lord's will, because every religion has a different interpretation. If I don't have the exact same will as the Lord's will, then I'm a sinner. I'm letting the carnal man come up. I need to bury the natural man. All these things that you're taught, if you can zoom out and objectively look at them, it was conditioning. It was a pattern in our brain that was constantly repeated over and over and over again to bury yourself, to bury your own energy, your own intuition, your own insights, your own beliefs, to make everyone a monoculture. Why would a religion want everyone to be a monoculture? Well, they're easier to control that way. And it's also a lot about obedience. There was so much pressure about obedience. You need to obey. You don't need to understand. You need to obey. That goes back to your point about the critical thinking. Critical thinking was really looked down on. I mean, they would never say that directly. When you look at the indirect messages, the critical thinking and the questioning, creativity is looked down on in many high demand religions.
Honestly, I was the problem child in church.
So was I.
I was that kid. The leaders all had my back when I was like getting upset with my peers. We literally just had a service about gossiping, and you're talking so mean about so-and-so. We just heard that message. Then I called the leaders out too. They teach me something. And you just did that. I'm sorry. I don't like people being hypocrites. If you're honest about it, I'm okay, you're being honest. I'll move on, whatever. But don't dare tell me when there's an elephant in the room that it's not there. I get weird about that. And right there. That's a giraffe.
It's right
That is an
there.
elephant.
As a kid, especially, it's easier to notice these things and point them out. As you get older and there's so much conditioning, they do a lot to keep you in as you get older. They reduce the age for girls to be able to go on a mission. When I was growing up, it was boys went on a mission at 19, girls went on a mission at 21. Reasoning for that was that because girls' primary role was to get married. If they weren't married by 21, then a mission could be an option for them. A few years ago, they reduced it to men could go at 18 and women could go at 19. And then recently, both boys and girls can go at 18. They reduced the age for both to 18. Well, what does that do? That means a girl gets straight out of high school. She goes straight on a mission. I didn't serve a mission. I know many people, including my husband, who served a mission. And there's a lot of talk when you go home. Okay, now go find a wife, go find a wife, go find a wife, right? She goes on a mission right out of high school. Then as soon as she gets off of her mission, all she's thinking about is eternal marriage, getting married in the temple, finding her spouse. She's 20 years old at this point. I was 20 when I got married. You're pretty locked in. I got married at 20 years old, and then our wedding ceremony in the temple, as soon as they finished the ceremony, the officiator, or sealer as they call it, said, go forth and multiply and replenish the earth. You get married, and then the expectation is you have kids right away. My point is, the older you get, the more the conditioning is there, the more your lifestyle is there. You can't make a choice to walk away, even though you might be battling all of these doubts, and there's something at church that's not sitting right, or maybe you're diving into church history and it's really upsetting to you, or certain policies or doctrines or whatever it may be not sitting right. It's easier to fall back to what you've been told and to listen to the idea of, I need to have more faith. The Lord works in mysterious ways. I don't need to understand it to believe it. It's a courageous thing to look at it objectively and figure out what is working for you and what is not working for you, and use those critical thinking skills. A lot of people in the church don't have practice with that.
And I think a lot of shame too. I'm struggling with my own issues. I wanted my kids. I'm dissecting, did I have my kids to get more love from my family? To feel valued. It was pressured in the church. It was mostly pressured with my family. Well, for me now, no, I wouldn't change it. I'm still unpacking how much pressure of being the perfect mom that my family, in my opinion, put on me to be, that I was never going to achieve, as my therapist told me that I already failed because it wasn't the vision I wanted. Of course I'm going to fail. It was a projection of who they wanted me to be, or maybe even the church wants you to be. It's not true who you are capable of being and who you want to be. You don't have the capacity to be a certain way. You only have the capacity to be true to who you are.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there. Thank you for sharing that. I think a lot of women feel that, but they're embarrassed to say, I don't know if I should have had kids when I did, because if you were to say that out loud to someone else, it somehow negates your love for your child. And those two things are completely exclusive of each other. Your love for your child is non-negotiable. It has nothing to do with the decision to have them or at what
Oh,
age you just.
absolutely.
I think a lot of women start to feel this shame for feeling, I don't know if I wanted to have so many kids, or I don't know if I wanted to have a kid when I was 20 years old. That's totally okay to have those emotions, and still two things can be true at once. That you love your kids as well, even though you're grieving a life unlived. You're looking at these choices that you made when you were 20 to 25 years old or whatever age you got married and had kids, and that set the trajectory of your life. Your brain is not even fully developed until you're 25. Yet you're now married and having children and raising children, and you're not even fully developed and mature, and you don't have the emotional regulation that you're going to have when you're older. A lot of women that I work with, including myself, you get to a point when you're raising your kids and you're in this life that was determined by choices you made when you were a different, immature, young 20-year-old.
Oh,
Yet you're
yeah.
in the
It's so
life.
more
You can't
impulsive.
change the life you're in. Right, exactly. You feel really ungrounded. Okay, I'm in this life, but do I choose this life today? I chose this life when I was 20, when maybe I didn't know that I had another choice. Now I'm in it. And it's really about looking back and looking at the good things that you can take moving forward and doing a
Absolutely.
deep dive into, okay, I can make choices to change now. I'm not stuck. Even though you might feel stuck, you're not stuck. You can start doing some inventory on what it is that you want, and which can be a difficult thing when a religion and family and society has been telling women that really their primary role is to serve other people. A lot of women come to me and they have this belief that they're responsible for everyone else's happiness. They don't even know what makes them happy because they've spent so many years serving other people. When I was in my early 40s and I was making Thanksgiving dinner and I was making pie, and I always make pie from scratch. It's more complicated when you got to make the dough. I was making apple pie and it hit me. I don't like apple pie. Why am I making apple pie? And then I'm in the kitchen slicing up apples. Why am I making apple pie? Well, it's my husband's favorite, so I make apple pie every year. And I'm finding myself feeling resentful. Every year I make what everyone else wants. Well, what kind of pie do I even like? And I didn't know. Like, it had been so many years of me serving other people, making sure their wants were met and their needs were met, that I didn't even know what kind of pie I liked. It's such a simple example. When you say to a woman, well, what do you want? I don't know. I don't even know what I want for dinner. Are you kidding me? I'm going to ask the kids what they want and we're going to have that.
So your pie example makes me laugh because my friend who is Mormon, she had that moment and she's like, I got to make all these pies for Thanksgiving and Christmas and I got to do all this stuff. And it has to be homemade crust, Kim. Why? Like, it's okay. You make one pie. Sure. You make homemade crust, whatever. You're making like 20 pies. Why? Just go buy the crust.
Yeah.
And I don't know is that a common thing in the Mormon Church of homemade pies culturally?
I wouldn't say directly homemade pies. I would say there's a pressure for perfectionism and doing it the best. Many years ago, there's general conference where all of the church leaders speak to all their members from Utah. There was one talk several years ago about good, better, best, and always go for the best. Especially as a mom, you could never just be good enough. You could never just do enough. You need to shoot for the best. Sets this perfectionism mindset. Not so much in Idaho. I lived in Boise, Idaho for 7 years. I grew up in California. I also spent some time in Utah. Utah especially, which is like the Mormon hub. If you look at the plastic surgery rates, the cosmetic procedure rates, it's higher in Utah than in any other state. Then you also look at the percentage of women on antidepressants, and it's higher than any other state. I think that speaks to that perfectionism mentality. You're not told you have to make pie crust from scratch. You're told that directly and indirectly through the messaging that you have to be the best. It creates this constant comparison. Then you're constantly feeling unworthy, not good enough, not measuring up. What am I going to do? I'm going to try and figure out how to change myself. What does that lead to? That leads to depression. It leads to anxiety. That was me when I was a young mom in Idaho, struggling with panic attacks, having severe anxiety, really depressed. And I couldn't figure out what it was because I was doing everything I was told to do. I was making the pie crust from scratch. I was going to church every Sunday. I was a stay-at-home mom, even though I desperately wanted to work. I was checking all the boxes. I was really struggling. In hindsight, I look back, and that was my body screaming at me, you're in a life that is not your own. It takes a lot of courage to see that. You're so in it, and you're so surrounded by people who are also in it. The conditioning, the sayings that are constantly repeated to us as members of the church, endure to the end. I used to use that quote myself, endure to the end. And then after I left, I stepped back and I was like, endure, what a horrible word. Basically, you're telling me that I have to endure life, that it's going to be so horrible that I'm going to have to wait it out. What if I want my life to be full of happiness and joy, not endurance? You got to rest at some point. Many LDS homes, including my own growing up, had this quote on the wall, a picture of Christ, and often there would be a quote underneath it that said, I never said it would be easy. I only said it would be worth it. And, I used to think that was such a great quote. Now looking back, what is that telling me? That's telling me that my life is going to be difficult and hard and full of sacrifice and burying myself, essentially.
It's so scary to leave. It can be scary to leave a community because you become vulnerable. You become desperate at some points, not always. For instance, I had my husband and I have some friends that I was able to leave a community that was bringing me down. I had a foundation built beforehand. But when you don't have anything and you leave, you're most likely going to go back because you have no safety net. Or I've heard so many stories of people joining cults in the end because they're like, I hate this specific religion.
That's very layered. There's so many reasons why it's difficult. You hit on many of them. Dependency. You're really dependent on the church for everything, especially as a woman. As a woman, you're told that your primary role is to be a nurturer. Your divine role is to be a wife and mother in heaven. While it was never discouraged for me to go to university, I was often told that the purpose of me going to university was so that after I got married, if heaven forbid something happened to my husband, I would have something to fall back on. It was never really about me seeking an independent career. It was more about a safety plan. You're very dependent on the church for a lot of things. And then you're dependent on your husband. Usually, I know so many women who they've been stay-at-home moms and then they're really questioning things. How could they make a different choice? Because they're dependent on their husband. They can't be totally independent. They're dependent on the church. The church is more than just a religion. It's an entire life. Like you said, it's your community. You live with the ward members. You all live in the same area. It's your social life. They're very good at fellowshipping. They're very good at creating a sense of community. That can be a beautiful thing. When you move to a different location, you have an instant social circle. There are not very many people that are going to have that. Based on where you live, you instantly know what you're going to do and who you're going to hang out with on Wednesdays and Saturdays and whenever there's a church function, which is multiple times a week. You have this community. You have instant friendship, especially if you grow up in the church. Your identity, which is the deepest subconscious layer, which your identity informs your values, your identity informs your beliefs, your identity informs your behaviors and your thoughts. Your identity is given to you. Your definition of a good mom and a good wife and your role in this life is given to you from the time you're a child. When things aren't sitting right, it shakes up who you are. If you're starting to shake up who you are, it's really scary. It's honestly easier to stay in a predictable hell than to walk away and go through the work to figure out who you are, because that's scary. If you can stay in a predictable pattern, even if you hate it, that's an easier choice. If you are making the decision to walk away, you are completely shattering your identity as a person. You're completely shattering your purpose in this life. You are losing an entire community. Many people lose family members because their family members are still in the church. I think it's also interesting that you mentioned that people might leave the Mormon religion and then join another organization that has cultish tendencies. I see that a lot too. You're so used to being told how to do everything. You don't realize you don't really have those critical thinking skills. And so it's so much easier to go from the LDS church telling you what to do and how to be, to go to somebody else telling you what to do and how to be.
Especially if you were never able to break the rules.
Right, right. And it's really trading one definition of an external authority to another. And the real work, which is the scary work, is turning inward. I mean, that's a lot of the work that I do with women, is being able to turn inward and go, you know what? The answers are within me. I don't have to ask another church or another external authority or read 100 self-help books or consult 10 different friends about what choice I should make about XYZ. All of those answers are within me, but you've spent so many years pushing it down and burying it, you don't know how to listen to yourself. That's the scary part. If you can take an external authority's decision over your life, it kind of takes the responsibility off of yourself. It gives all the responsibility to that external authority. When you can really tune into yourself, it's really empowering. It's also scary because you're okay, well, now I'm also the only one responsible for where my life goes. And it's easier to blame someone else.
Yeah. Honestly, I think of it as an example of parenting where you want your kids, you want to slowly build autonomy. You want to give them choices that they can handle. Because if you give too many choices when they're too little, I have to relearn this with my second. She's only 8 months old. I'm going to put food in front of her and she doesn't have to finish it. She doesn't have to eat it all. Giving my oldest too many options has not created good change because she's, I'm not going to eat this, even though she loves what I put in front of her anyway. She, no, I have this thing in my mind and I want this and this is how it's going to work. I gave her too many choices and she's too little. Where people are promoting something that actually is good, they kind of miss the message of my kid doesn't have to eat what's for dinner. We have safe foods. They can build something that they know they like, even if they don't want lasagna for dinner. This idea, I think, sometimes happens when we become an adult is, what am I going to make for dinner? Or you set up a kid for failure when they get to dictate what everyone else eats for dinner. That's also not healthy because they're not the leaders of the family. They don't know what their siblings like, or they don't care, or they're going to, I just want mac and cheese and there's nothing wrong with mac and cheese and chicken nuggets.
Right.
Where's the vegetable? Where's the fiber? They're not going to think about that when we don't educate them first. Similar to the church, I feel that the reason why it's so hard to give up the church and why everyone's, Kimberly, are you going to go back to church? Are you going to go back to church? Are you going to, like, it's on repeat. I haven't found one that's not about the world is ending. I'm not going to go to one of those, and that's only the options I have around me. I get why people believe in church on Sundays.
Yeah.
Essentially, you have a rest day. You know it's predictable. You know what's going to happen. The only thing that changes is maybe the music. We did Job, so now we're moving on to the next book. That's nice. It's nice to have a rest day. It's nice to have predictability. It's nice to already have a rule book of this is how this day is going to go. I get why people don't want to leave. At the same time, as long as it works for you, go for it.
Yeah, I take stock of the emotion that you're feeling most of the time. If you're kind of stuck in negative emotions and frustration and I don't want to do this is an obligation, and you're always looking at the negative side of things and a little bit of resentment, there's something there to look at because you may have been told to endure to the end and life isn't easy. That's not true. Life can be full of joy. Life can be full of positive emotions when you are living in alignment, listening to your body, listening to who you are, making choices that are 100% yours. It doesn't have to be miserable all the time. If you're going through the motions because it's a predictable pattern, but you're miserable and you're struggling with anxiety and maybe you're a little depressed, and for me, I was having massive panic attacks, your body is screaming at you that something isn't right. There's a belief that you're following that isn't really yours. Life can be full of joy and happiness. When I learned that, when I had the courage to walk away, I had the courage to really dive into who am I, and I learned how to listen to myself. I can't tell you how much more joy I experienced than I ever did before. I can find joy in anything. I'm constantly looking for moments of happiness. I'm not stuck in obligation. I make decisions because I want to, not because I'm trying to please someone else. I still live in service, love, giving, and kindness. I do it from an aligned space, not because I feel like I have to in order for someone else to love me.
It's hard if that's all you've ever known. I'm literally
Oh,
learning from Better Health right now using their services. I love it. I've been obsessed with this one teacher talking about codependency, and she talked all the layers about it. It was funny listening to one of my friends. She was venting, and I was like, "That's codependency, right? Nothing you can do is ever right. That's codependency. You're not doing anything wrong. You genuinely care about him. You love him. That's codependency. Well, he's not doing well, and he doesn't
yeah.
have much long to live. I'm wanting you to know because there's like two type of people like have to kind of coexist in those kind of dynamics. Someone who wants to serve and someone who wants to be served. It's so wild. And speaking of what
Yeah.
you were talking about with perfectionism and people pleasing, that also is codependency. I learned another term about like the psychology of entitlement. The reason why people can be so cruel to the people below them. Well, that's how you treat children or my grandchildren, or I don't care that my kid's an adult. I could treat them however they want, is because they have their own suppress powerlessness and
Yeah.
anger anytime they get triggered by their kid, because kids are going to be kids. They're not going to listen to you because you told them so. They're going to be wild. And it can be
Yes.
infuriating. And if you struggle with all that suppress emotions, of course you're going to come out like as a tyrant. Now you have power. How dare you talk to me that way when in reality it's the fact that you reacted.
Yeah, one of the other signs that's not in alignment is being emotionally overreactive. And if you're finding yourself really quick to react to something and then regretting it later and emotionally overreactive, a situation didn't really match the level of emotion that it gave you, that's also a trauma response. That means you're jumping to these well-worn patterns in your brain, not making a choice that's yours. It's that conditioning is on repeat. This is where women need to get good at observing their emotions and being able to say, okay, why am I feeling this emotion? Usually if you're overreactive about something, is because there's some kind of a belief that's out of alignment with you. You need to take a deep dive. I do a lot of work with women about nervous system regulation and emotional regulation, making decisions from a place of peace. You emotionally overreact, pause and start asking yourself some really simple questions. Many times when you're in a life that's not aligned and you're anxious and you're depressed, you're making decisions, you're choosing behaviors like emotional reactivity from a place of anger or frustration or doubt or worry. You're not going to make a choice that's best choice for you and your family. So being able to recognize the emotion, where is it coming from? How can I choose a better emotion before I respond? It's the difference between reacting and responding, right? The reacting is the well-worn pattern in your brain that's there. The response is, what is the choice that feels aligned to me that I'm going to make in this moment? Very few situations where you have to respond quickly. Most of the time, you can give it some wait time before you respond.
Absolutely. I was even thinking about what you were saying, how that resonates so true. Skills that I learned was never say yes talking over the phone or in person. Give yourself a moment with emails and text messages. I mean, unless it's nothing that bothers you.
There's two feelings to pay attention to. Constrictive, does your body instantly kind of tighten up? Is there a lump in your throat? You can't really get a deep breath. That's telling you that there's something not aligned here. And it's probably a no, even though your conditioning is going to tell you to say yes for people pleasing purposes. What you want to get to is you want to pay attention to feel expansive. Does it feel open? Does it feel light? Does it feel like you can take a deep breath? That tells you that decision is aligned, and that's a yes. Paying attention to how things feel in your body is the first step to knowing if your answer is a yes or a no, if it aligns with you or doesn't align with you. We've been so conditioned as women and as moms comes to, I'll do it, I'll make that, I'll bring that casserole, or I'll show up for the parent night with 100 cookies or whatever. Really, you feel constrictive as you're saying, I really don't want to do that. And then as you're doing it, you're going to be resentful, you're going to be angry. And this is where the anxiety starts to set in. You're saying yes when your body said no.
Love that. You're hitting the
Yes.
physical responses. Once you've mastered that, you can go to the next one. Does this feel like
Yes.
something I want to do, or does this feel something I have to do? And sometimes we do have to do things. We have to take care of our kids. Sometimes we don't want to have to go do 10 million things that our kid wants to do in a day. And also, we don't have time.
Going back to that identity piece is the definition that you were given of what a good person is, or what a good wife is, or what a good mom is. That definition was given to you. You're living to a standard and expectation that's someone else's expectation of you. What I do with a lot of women is we dive into discovering what they think a good mom is, because it's not my definition of a good mom. It's their definition of what a good mom is, and that definition of yours. One of the ones I hear a lot is a good mom sacrifices herself for her kids. When you really dive deep and you start asking questions, most women are actually resentful of that definition. They realize that they have lost themselves, they've sacrificed themselves, and there's not a balance there. You can absolutely serve your kids without losing who you are. We dive a little bit deeper and we start asking good questions. Good questioning and journaling is powerful as women are moving through this. And it helps to find the guilt and shame that's attached to it. We ask a series of questions to kind of poke holes in the belief. First thing I always ask is, when did you decide that? When did you decide that a definition of a good mom was that she sacrifices for her kids? When did you decide that? You kind of see their heads go back. I don't know. And I think I've always had that definition. And then I ask, who did you get that definition from? Because it didn't come from them. And usually from church, or, from watching my mother sacrifice, or they've gotten it from an outside source. I ask, do you think that's always true? Is there ever a time that's not true? Okay, now we're getting somewhere. Okay, so if that belief of a good mom sacrifices herself for her kids, if we poked holes in it and it's not always true, and there's definitely some times when it's not true, then what do you want to believe instead? What belief related to a mother serving her kids is going to feel expansive for you? Sit and spend some time with that. Spend some time in a journal in a quiet space. Let your thoughts come out with that and any of those beliefs, definitions, because those definitions go down to your identity. And that's where you can uncover it.
I love that women like you are coming out and helping other moms. I hear all these stories. I had a similar story with my firstborn. I had all these
Oh,
expectations,
yeah.
specifically the trad wife trend. Breast is best. When I had my first, I was supposed to do everything, the breadwinner between me and my husband. I have to go back to work because my income is like 3 times his. There's like all this pressure. I'm trying to be a good wife. I'm trying to fit all these boxes, but they don't fit me. And it's funny because a lot of jobs that should be the mother's job, my husband loves doing. He loves the routine. He loves doing all these things. He needs help not being passive because I'm a behavior therapist. I'm very assertive. I also can compromise. My job is to see needs instead of attention seeking. It's connection seeking. Instead of access, they're expressing a need not being met. It's sometimes things work for you. And it's wild when I talk to my girlfriends, when I had the dude moment of, I remember looking at my husband because I had really bad postpartum the first time. The second time we had a serious conversation, I don't think I can wake up doing the night feeds. And he did. And I looked over at him and I said, wow, the baby slept through the night. He said, are you kidding me? She woke up 4 times.
You brought up a lot about expected roles, especially in society as well, especially in religion, these expected gender roles. I remember when I was struggling with anxiety and depression and I knew I wanted to work and my husband was working full time. He was honestly better with the kids than I was. And I mean, he grew up in a huge family with 10 kids. He cooking and cleaning and taking care of kids was no big deal for him. And he did it so naturally. And I remember feeling, why don't we switch? Why doesn't he stay home? And then I go to work. I remember bringing that up to church leaders. They looked at me like I asked if I could cut off my arm. They were, no, you are a woman. Your divine role is the nurturer and to be in the home. His role as a man is to earn the money. I was quickly put in my place. At the same time,
Yeah.
I was the stay-at-home mom, and my husband was a teacher. They were living in Idaho and make hardly any money as a teacher in Idaho. We were struggling financially. I was doing what I was told to do. We had to go to the church for financial assistance. We had 3 kids. I was being the righteous mom. My husband was working as a teacher. We couldn't make ends meet. I was grateful to the church. They did support us for a few months. There was one experience where church has what's called a bishop's storehouse, which is a grocery store. Basically, the Relief Society president, who's the head of the women's organization of the church, comes to your house and goes through your kitchen for you and makes a list of the items that you need. I didn't even have my own autonomy or independence to choose what my family needed. And it was food. It's not like getting anything extra. She goes through the kitchen and makes the checklist of what I need. Going back to dependency, definitely think I felt so small. I was doing everything they told me to do, yet it still wasn't good enough. We had this done several times. She comes to my house, she gives me the checklist and then, gives it to me. And then you go to the bishop's storehouse and usually a missionary couple who's there, and their volunteer job is to run this storehouse, which is like a little grocery store just for poor Mormons. I show up and I have my 3 kids. We have this old station wagon. We pile the kids in. I go to this bishop's storehouse and I give them the checklist, and I'm already humiliated and feeling so small. I can't even feed my kids. I'm doing everything you're telling me to do. She said, "You're missing the bishop's signature." It got lost in the shuffle of the paperwork with the Relief Society president. I thought the Relief Society president got the signature from the bishop, blah, blah, blah. I said, "Oh, I'm sorry. I thought it had everything it needed. Can you make a phone call?" "No, you're going to have to go get the signature and come back." I was there with 3 kids, already feeling humiliated, feeling I was just dirt on the floor. I went back to the car and I get the kids all buckled into their car seats and I sat in the car and sobbed. What that did for me was the moment where I said to myself, I am no longer going to be dependent on anyone else to take care of me. They might be telling me that I need to be a stay-at-home mom, but I'm going to make a different choice and I'm going to do what I need to do to not be dependent. I'm going to find some independence. That was where I made the decision to go back to school and find something for me. I knew that I could do something different. I'm going to make the decision to not be 100% stay-at-home mom. I'm going to go back to school and I'm going to start a career because I don't want to be dependent on someone else anymore. I wasn't quite ready to make a fully aligned choice on my career. And I chose to take a career. I still had that conditioning of kids first, what does the family want? I chose to be a teacher. I went back to school to be a teacher. Why? Because it's the most benign job a Mormon mom can have. I have the same schedule as my kids. They wouldn't have to go into daycare. I made a career choice that was based on the Mormon conditioning and what was best for my husband and family, not a career choice that was really based on me. So it was these baby steps towards really taking ownership of myself again. Then after I graduated from school, I taught in Nampa, Idaho for a while. And then my husband and I found out about the international school and we moved overseas. We took our kids at ages 7, 9, and 11 and we moved to a different country. That was amazing for so many reasons. One of the reasons is that physical separation from the church, from the ward, allowed me to see it with a bird's eye view. I could clear the clutter in my head because I had that physical separation from it. Our years of international education, I'm teaching and I'm not really that happy in my job. So I thought, okay, I'll move into administration. I knew I had leadership skills and I knew that there were some changes, positive changes that I could make. And I thought I could have more of an impact as an administrator on students and the school community. I went into administration and now I'm the director of an international school. I'm still feeling something's not right here, right? Something's not quite aligned and I'm not that happy. I was talking to my own coach who was helping me work through a lot of these big questions. And I said, I love coaching students. I love it when the students come into my room and they kind of download. I love coaching parents because parents were often coming into my office talking about parenting and how do I deal with this situation. Those are the parts of my job that I loved. And she said to me, well, what demographic do you want to work with? And I said, oh, I'm not really sure. She said, what about working with other moms who left the LDS church? As soon as she said that, I was like, yes, yes, yes. And I burst into tears. That's it. That's what I want to do. I know what that feels like. I know how jarring it is. It's having the rug of certainty ripped out from under your life when you leave. I want to help other women go through that process to know that they don't have to stay in that feeling of loss, grief, and guilt, that they can move towards a better feeling emotion. Now my career feels aligned. It feels excited. It feels totally mine. That's the difference. That's the difference that I didn't even know I was missing before.
You inspired me too. I'm all new to podcasting. I've wanted to do it before I even had my first child. And it was my two friends. They started their own and they're like, yeah, it's not our thing. The fact that they
Yeah.
did it inspired me because if they can do it, maybe I can too. And then now it's become my fixation.
That's okay. Step by step, you follow the joy. What is it that feels
Yeah,
good? What is it that feels easy? What is it that feels exciting? You follow
absolutely.
that instead of the expectation.
I always was that kid. I just want everyone to get along. That's me. I remember even talking to one of my parents. I think both political parties have their points and I wish they would work together. No, only one.
That's a very common response. The world, especially in religion, the world in general is very dichotomous. And what I mean by that, right versus wrong, good versus bad, me versus you. What I have learned, especially in my years overseas and meeting so many different people from so many different religions and different cultures in different countries, is that there's not one right way to do things. There's 8 billion people on the planet, so why can't there be 8 billion different right
Mhm.
ways? Why does it have to be right versus wrong and us versus them? I love diversity and individuality in that. I can have a conversation with someone of a totally different faith than mine, and it's not about trying to prove them wrong and prove myself right. It's about a mutual understanding and curiosity. I love thinking I'm going to be curious, not judgmental. That's an approach that has really changed my
Oh,
energy. If I approach things with curiosity instead of being judgmental, it's an open connection now. And you can start to see the similarities between people instead of focusing on what makes us different.
absolutely. I was thinking when you were talking about curiosity, I think the reason why there's a lot of women struggling is
Mhm.
because there are a lot of women that like curiosity. And then there are women that like rigidity and it works for them. You do you, queen. You do what works for you. I think that's the nice part. That's where we have commonality of you look at other people and they're
Right.
making choices that this one doesn't align with me. You don't look at them with judgment in the sense of I know better. You look at them with judgment in the sense of that's not good for me. That doesn't align with who I want to be. It's not congruent to who I'm
Yes.
trying to become.
Such a powerful place to be in. It's really hard when you leave the church and you have family who are still in and you're still feeling the hurt and the pain from leaving, and you have the grief of maybe losing some family members. It's easy to put a lot of blame. As you go through the work of healing and emotional regulation, aligning with who you are, it's freeing to be able to have a conversation with a family member or someone and they're talking about their belief in the church. And instead of feeling immediately triggered, you can really have this sense of respect. And I love that brings you joy. I'm happy that this is where you find meaning, but you can have that separation. It doesn't have to affect you, right? It's a difficult place to get to, especially with close family relationships, especially if you're not getting that same feeling back at you. If it's not mutual, that's where boundaries come in. You need to be really secure in your boundaries. In order to be secure in your boundaries, you have to be secure in yourself first.
I know it's hard when you're dealing with family. Sometimes you know their rigidity and that they haven't changed. Like one of my family members told me all these nasty things. I recently got diagnosed with autism. I don't have to beat myself up anymore. It sucks because you hear people, but you're high functioning, right? That
Yeah,
doesn't change the fact that I'm struggling with loud
right.
noises and I want to cry after hangouts, not because I didn't have fun. I was watching this dog today limping on one leg. They're treating him like the other dogs. I want to be treated like the
Yeah,
other people, but can you
yeah,
acknowledge the fact I have one leg missing and I'm working extra hard
yeah,
and that's okay and I'm okay with
yeah.
it. Let me take it at my pace. Please do not rush me kind of energy. They told me I doctor shop to get it. They also call my podcast stupid. And the same person who said it wished they could have been a doctor. Why don't you? It's too late.
But we have this saying in NLP, perception is projection. Thinking about that person that said those things to you, there's something in them first that they're projecting onto you. They wanted to be a doctor. They're projecting their disappointment in
Mhm.
themselves onto you. In order to see something in someone else, it has to be in
Absolutely.
us first. Other people's opinions of you are none of your business. They're one of the hardest things. I still struggle with this many times is I cannot control someone else's beliefs.
Honestly, I love being in that place. Even if my
Yeah.
friend so and so said something, don't tell me. Thank you. I trust you. I know who you are. I needed to know
Yeah.
this so
Yeah.
I didn't have this illusion of safety.
Because they feel like they have to spew their negative energy onto you. You don't have to pick it up. You can observe without engagement.
Absolutely. Hard when you're processing it with family. That's why I really love what you're doing. I think that's the hardest thing to detangle. I don't even think it's the church itself. I think it's the family aspect of it.
It is the hardest part, especially with parents. When you're born, your parents, that's your very first relationship. It's primal. Your whole life, even as an adult, you're constantly navigating around your parents' opinion of you, and you're measuring yourself to that opinion that they have of you. It can be ungrounding when you realize that it's not what you want it to be. You are seeking approval from that very first, deepest relationship that you've had. There's a lot of healing work that needs to be done, especially around family. That's a lifelong process. It's not something you can journal one and then suddenly you're unbothered by their opinion of you. That's something that takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of specific strategies. It takes a lot of commitment from yourself to pay attention to how you're feeling, to put up boundaries, to
Yeah.
be willing to walk away, to be willing to release the obligation that you feel towards your family. You know, if a relationship is toxic, it's okay to step away from it. You're not obligated to have them in your life just because you came from them. Now, I think that's the last resort type thing. I think there's a lot of things that could be done to maintain a relationship, even though the relationship might not be what you want it to be.
Absolutely. One of the things that you were talking about helped me detangle is I do want to be a mom. How I was doing motherhood is what I was grieving. I was
Mm,
grieving my own motherhood because it wasn't aligned to how I want to be a mom. I genuinely enjoy my kids. I didn't want to go to my own graduation. It's so boring. But I'll do it for my kids. It's essentially, I didn't want the 100 cookies. Like, no,
yeah. Yeah.
I'll get all the ingredients. I'll find the recipe. Hubby
There
can
you
even go
go.
make the 100 cookies.
You find what works for you. It doesn't have to be what someone tells you it should be.
Absolutely. When was the moment you realized something in your life wasn't sustainable anymore?
There was a lot of little moments that were a slow erosion for me. 10 years of me questioning and 10 years of me being uncomfortable, but pushing it down and pushing it down. That moment at the Bishop's Storehouse or food bank, that was the moment I knew I was going to do something other than what I was being told to do. That was kind of the first step in me discovering myself. When I went back to school, I found this whole group of friends that it was a real, genuine connection. And then I realized that my friends at church, it didn't feel the same. It felt very superficial, and I always had to put on a certain face, and I couldn't be vulnerable at church. Then I had these friends at school, and we had the same interests, and I was a biology education teacher. I was in all these science classes with all these different friends groups, and we had this connection about something other than religion, and it was open and honest, and I felt I could be myself. Then we moved overseas and I started opening my eyes to the variety of different religions and cultures. I was having these experiences. We were traveling with our kids and I would go to Hindu temples in India and see these dedicated people. Wait a second. This is confusing because I was always taught that Mormons were the most dedicated, that we had the one true belief, that no one was as convicted as we were. These people are really convicted in their faith. I would go to a Muslim mosque or a Catholic cathedral or a fire temple from the Zoroastrians, and it would feel spiritual to me. It was this contradiction from what I was told, where the Mormon Church kind of had the monopoly on spirituality, but these places still felt spiritual to me. They didn't feel like these devil worship places. Those experiences of traveling gave me this objective view. I was meeting so many different people and realizing that there's a beauty in a diverse way of doing life, that there wasn't one right way, one true way to do something. All of those different experiences kind of added up to me being able to step back, and now I'm independent. Now I'm working and I have a job and I have a lot of successes and I'm starting to find my own person. Then it was November 2015, the church came out with this statement that children of gay parents would be considered apostates and would not be able to receive the full blessings of the church. I had already been making these steps towards finding myself and independence. I was already questioning and I had this bird's eye view. The moment they came out with that statement, I had this full body reaction of this is not right. This is based in hate, and I am not okay with this. In that moment, it was this culmination, the straw that broke the camel's back. Because of all my other experiences building up to this, in that moment, instantly I knew I'm done. And I remember walking upstairs and taking my garments off, which were the special Mormon underwear that you get when you go through the temple. Took my garments off and I looked at myself in the mirror and I said, I am not Mormon. That was it. It was a 10-year buildup for me to be able to then take that policy doctrine that the church came out with, immediately see it for what it was, and then have the courage to say, I'm done.
In a community, when you villainize a person for being different, where in Jesus's messages did he say that? He talked about behavior. He never talked about people being different.
Right. It was very much in the Mormon culture fitting the cookie cutter. And I never fit the cookie cutter. I tried to fit the cookie cutter. It's so hard.
I would call it like the hero story where you're like trying to find yourself, create alignment. I remember looking back at the Daenerys at the final season. I get why she burned everything to the ground. Everyone told her, do it this way. Don't be like your dad. Do it this way. And she goes in and how quickly she got everything she needed. I get why she went psycho. I get it. I had that moment. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
This isn't how things are supposed to be. I think you get that choice. You either could be like Daenerys and you can hurt people, or you can go back, reflect, and realize that sometimes people were putting expectations and pressure on you. That was them trying to make sense of their world. Had nothing to do with you because they weren't dragon masters. They don't get it. What beliefs did you inherit that took years to unlearn?
In the LDS faith, the temple is the end goal. If you go to the temple, you get married in the temple. Before you even get married in the temple, you go through a ceremony called the endowment ceremony where you make certain covenants with God. Those covenants that you make with God are supposed to be the top, most powerful covenants that need to be done in this life in order for you to go to the celestial kingdom, which is the top layer of heaven for Mormons. It's a big deal. And you go through this endowment ceremony, you're given these garments. The garments represent the covenants that you made in the temple. They're supposed to be worn all the time to remind you of your covenants, also to keep you modest. At the time, they were like short sleeves and they would go down to your knee. It would keep you modest. Also, it was a reminder of your covenants to God. They're uncomfortable and they're hot. That endure to the end thing. They're always there. You're always annoyed. You're always sweating, but they're reminding you of your sacrifice for God. You're also instructed to wear them day and night. You need to always wear them except for exercise and things like that. You're allowed to take them off. You should put them immediately back on. It's shameful if you take them off because then you're breaking your covenants to God. For me, a physical representation of I'm leaving, because even though I had 10 years of questioning and I had this slow erosion, the conditioning of if I take these off, I'm going to hell. If I take these off, I won't go to heaven. If I take these off, I'm breaking my covenants and I don't have eternal salvation and I'm destroying my family. That was the deep-seated belief that I had related to those garments. So until I was 100%, I do not believe in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Until I could say that with 100% certainty, I couldn't take those garments off.
That must have both been a horrifying but also liberating moment.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, well, it's too late now.
Yeah, exactly. I took them off. I felt liberated. I felt empowered. Then it was, what now? Okay, I know what I'm not. I know that I don't believe what those garments represent. I know I don't believe that. Then what do I believe? And oh my gosh, my kids are 9, 11, and 13. I've raised them in this church. I destroyed their moral compass. That's how it felt. That's absolutely not what happened, but that's how it felt. How am I going to guide my kids when I don't even know how to guide myself?
How would you feel for all the things you're doing right now if none of that was true? Can you still stand by it? I think a lot of people would reject it. If you're going to explore something and you don't have the foundations to even handle it, your mind's not going to want to dive into that. I could
Yeah.
see why they get so defensive. Understanding that for yourself in your own journey, what do you try to do to help soften that journey for other people?
The church gives you a lot of certainty, gives you certainty on a path, where you're going, what to believe, what the afterlife is going to look like. The church gives you a lot of certainty. And so we work through that fear. Where is that fear coming from? And we start to become comfortable with not knowing. It's okay to not know. It's okay to wonder. It's also okay to come up with a different idea of the purpose of life that's different than what someone else has given you. I often tell people, follow the joy. What feels good? What feels good to you? This life doesn't have to be about earning a reward in heaven. Why can't you have the reward now? There's a lot of deep dives into following what feels good and playing with different beliefs. It's okay to change your mind. It's okay to have one belief one day and then learn something different and change your mind. What is it that you want to do? Getting clear on what you want to do and who you are. As you move forward, you realize that you don't have to have all the answers and that it can be something that is an open conversation and dialogue with your family members and with your kids. And there's not one right way.
Absolutely. I love that. I love you say there's these many people. There's so many different ways things can go. And I wanted to add, I often think that sometimes heaven and hell, or even
Mhm.
purgatory, is the life we live. You can have a life that feels like heaven, and you can create a
Why
life that
go
feels like
through all
hell.
this torture for some reward in heaven when you can live a rewarding life now? Why focus on what may or may not be next when you could have a beautiful,
Mhm.
joyful life now, not full of someone else's
Absolutely.
expectations and then resentment and frustration?
It's hard though, especially if you had to endure stuff that stunt growing your autonomy. It can feel very scary. Leaving Mormonism, what do you feel people might misunderstood about the detaching from the label of Mormon? How are you trying to balance that as a coach between people who are still in it but aren't sure?
One of the lessons in my reclaimed program is called parts integration. That's looking at the person you were as a young child before all of the conditioning and expectations of others started to set in. Who you were, what lit you up, what gave you joy, what were your interests, who you were in the church, really looking at the good parts of it. What were the good things that you learned? I learned leadership skills in the church. I really did. There were a lot of good things I learned and a lot of skills I gained in the church. I learned about service. The church is very good with service, serving others. Who is it you want to be? What does the future you look like? What are the interests of the future you? Who are you with? How do you feel? There's three parts of you. The you before the conditioning set in as a young child, the you in the church, and then the you moving forward. We spend some time looking at the good things that you want to take with you into the future self and being able to integrate those into someone that is designed by you and only you. Those feelings that you want to have moving forward, feelings of peace, excitement, and passion, and love, what can you do today to take those feelings into your life moving forward? What are some small steps that you can take to keep that identity of the good parts of you that you like, that you want to move forward? That's different for everybody. Some people choose to completely leave the church. They cut it off. They cut off family because that's what they choose to do. That's what felt good for them based on their situation and that dynamic. Some people choose to no longer believe in the church, but still have a lot of friends and family in the church. And they can come to this point where they're really secure in themselves and they can see other people have joy in it and not have to partake in it. There's a variety of different ways to do it. And it's about integrating who you were, the good parts of yourself that you can take away from your time being in the church, and how you want to take those moving forward. Leaving the church is the catalyst. Especially in social media, I see so many people that are still in the space of, I've left the church, I'm against the church, I'm going to point out every wrong thing about the church. For them, that's part of their healing journey. I knew the things about church history and the stuff about polygamy. I knew it didn't sit right with me, and I knew there was racist policies in the church. That's part of, everyone has a different process. And leaving the church for me was a catalyst into an exciting journey. Okay, what's next? Okay, then who am I? There's still a lot of hard times and pain related to that. I say every once in a while, my inner Mormon critic will still come out. Still uncover belief that is giving me anxiety, or I'm still uncovering feelings of unworthiness, or feelings of being unlovable, or feelings of not being good enough. Cover those all the time. And when I dive deep down, it's back from a belief that I got in the church, oftentimes, about who I am or who I should be. Now I see life as, who do I want to be? I can reinvent myself. I can make a choice based on who I am, not based on what I think the church is telling me I should do. Leaving the church was the catalyst for me to design a life that felt good and inviting in relationships that were based on genuine connection, not based on a shared belief system. I still uncover a layer. I still am uncovering things all the time. The church is really good with community. I think when you leave the church, you often lose your community because you don't have that same shared belief. The church was really good at taking care of their own. I take from that the importance of community. It takes a village. It takes a village to raise a child. That is true. I take that sense of community and fellowshipping with me. I have redesigned my community to be people who I choose and to be people who lift me up and to be people who I don't feel any kind of judgmental energy coming from them. I choose people who allow me to be myself. If there's someone in my friendship circle who is in need, I serve them out of pure joy, not out of obligation, because that's what the Relief Society president told me to do, to make a casserole for Joe on Tuesday night. But I serve out of a pure intention out of my heart. I take that for sure, the importance of community, the importance of helping other people and giving.
What are things that you're still letting go that you're comfortable with talking about today?
Purity culture, not exclusive to Mormonism. There's a lot of religions that push purity culture. There's a lot of emotions and desires that are perfectly normal and healthy and natural. You've been conditioned to feel shame anytime you have any kind of a sexual feeling, anytime something turns you on, even within a marriage.
What advice would you give to parents who struggle with being a leader while also remembering their humanity when it comes to their children?
Give yourself grace. There's so much mom guilt of I'm failing my kids. I'm doing it wrong. I made a wrong choice. I said the wrong thing. There's a quote, when we know better, we do better. A lot of times I'll have guilt about things I did in the past or choices I made when I was a different person or things I said to my kids when I was a different person. If I had known better, I would have done better. I didn't know better. I was a young, immature mom. I honestly doing the best with the skills I knew. As I learned new skills, I did better. I made different choices. Give yourself some grace. I saw this quote once when my kids were teenagers that kids are watching their parents grow up. For me, when I left the church, I had to undo all that conditioning that if you look at neuroscience and child development, I had to kind of go back to being 7 years old.
Mm.
I had to heal 7-year-old me at the same time as raising my kids. I was doing the best I could with what I knew. My kids are great. They're wonderful. And I have a great relationship with my adult children. And did I make mistakes? Absolutely. Do they need therapy for some things I did? Probably. Actually, I can pretty much guarantee that there's some things they're going to have to unravel. What makes the human experience beautiful. Now I have these open, honest conversations with my kids about what life was like for them growing up, what life was like for me as a young mom. And even this last Christmas, I was talking to my 21-year-old and I was talking to her about the journey of leaving the church. And she was like, I don't remember when you left, you really telling us. I didn't. I was so embarrassed. I didn't know what to say. And I felt like I needed to have all the right answers for you. And I didn't. And she said, I think you could have told us and we would have understood. Wow. Very understanding. It's okay to be vulnerable with your child. You don't have to be the authority that knows everything. It's okay to admit to your child that you're struggling with something at age appropriate levels and to open up, because if they see you struggle, they're going to know that it's okay for them to struggle. They're not going to feel this perfectionism that you grew up with if they see that it's okay that mom's not perfect. Give yourself grace and be be willing to open up to your kids when they come to you with a question and say, I don't know. Let's figure this out together.
What I see is you're seeing a need for women leaving the Mormon Church, that the pain of staying is outweighing the pain of leaving. You're
Mhm.
trying to create space for them, a community for them, so they didn't have to feel it alone like you did at some aspects.
I like the way you say that. The pain of staying is greater than the pain of leaving. Gosh, it can be so different on the other side. Living a life that's aligned, living a life that's yours, making decisions that are from you, and having those deep relationships with your kids that's not based on expectation, based on a clear identity and real acceptance and belonging. That's something I didn't experience when I was in the church, and that's something that I have found once leaving. That's one thing I help women do is find a community of other moms too. In my Reclaimed program, we have a community, we have group coaching calls, we have a community where the women who just get it. I didn't know anyone else who had left, and I was trying to explain to some of my non-Mormon friends what it was like, and they didn't get it. They didn't understand the jargon. They didn't understand the conditioning. They didn't understand, you don't drink coffee. That doesn't make sense. If you're with women who just get it, you don't have to explain. They just know. That's really powerful, is that community that we create together, the healing process of figuring out who you are, regulating emotion, navigating the grief of loss, and coming to terms with some of that mom guilt. It's really transformational.
Audra, it was a pleasure doing this interview with you. I want to sign us off that if you are wanting to reach Audra, her company name is Mama Audra. Where could we find you?
I'm on Facebook and Instagram and TikTok. I have a website that's mamaaudra.com. And I have a free masterclass for ex-Mormon moms that have left the church. If you go to mamaaudra.com/training, you can watch that masterclass. If that resonates with you, there's an application there to fill out to schedule a call with me, and I'd be happy to chat.
Thank you for listening to Thinking Out Loud. If Audra's story resonated with you, join the conversation kindly. Whether you're staying, stepping away, or somewhere in between, there's room to find what aligns with you.